When Marines strapped hell to their backs. The M2 Flamethrower Story. 4 minutes to live. February 23, 1945. Iwo Jima. A Marine Corps statistician sits in a tent doing math that nobody wants to see. He's calculating survival rates for different combat roles: machine gunners, riflemen, corpsmen. Then he gets to the flamethrower operators. The number makes him stop cold. Average lifespan on the battlefield? 4 minutes. One flamethrower unit on Iwo Jima posts a 92% casualty rate. Not wounded, not scared, 92% casualties. That means if 10 guys in your unit carry the flamethrower, only one is walking off that island in one piece. But here's the thing that's going to blow your mind. Marines were volunteering for this job. They were lining up to strap 70 pounds of jellied gasoline to their backs and walk into Japanese machine gun fire. Why? Because without that weapon, nobody was getting off those islands alive. Let's rewind to 1943. The U.S. is island hopping across the Pacific, and we're running into a problem that conventional weapons can't solve. The Japanese aren't just digging foxholes, they're building fortresses. We're talking reinforced concrete bunkers, cave complexes that go 30 feet into solid rock, pillboxes with interlacking fields of fire. One bunker on Guadalcanal measured 6 to 30 feet long, buried under logs, dirt, and coral, with machine guns that could cover every approach. Marines would hit these positions with everything they had. Artillery? The shells just bounced off or got absorbed by the earth. Grenades? You'd need to throw one directly through a firing port the size of a shoebox while getting shot at. Regular rifle fire? Forget about it. You couldn't even see the guys inside. Major General Alexander Vandegrift, commander of the 1st Marine Division, saw the carnage on Tulagi and said flat out, we needed flamethrowers. Without them, taking these islands was going to cost thousands more lives. The M2 Flamethrower looked like something out of a nightmare, because frankly, it was. 2 big cylindrical tanks on a backpack frame, one small tank for pressurized nitrogen, and a wand that shot liquid fire up to 40 meters. But the early versions? Total disasters. The M1 flamethrower was so bad that Marines didn't trust it. The ignition system was wonky, the fuel mixture burned out too fast, and its range was pathetic, maybe 15 yards max. You basically had to walk up and tap the enemy on the shoulder before you could light him up. Not exactly ideal when they're shooting back. Then, in 1942, a Harvard chemistry professor named Louis Pfizer invented something on Valentine's Day. Real romantic stuff. He called it napalm, a combination of naphthenic and palmitic acids. This stuff was a game changer. It was thick, it stuck to targets, and it burned hot enough to melt steel. The improved M2 flamethrower hit the battlefield in summer 1944, and it changed everything. Better ignition system, longer range, and it used napalm that would stick to concrete, wood, and flesh, then burn for minutes. The specs were brutal: 70 pounds total weight, 7 seconds of continuous burn time, flames that could reach 40 meters. The operator carried what amounted to a bomb on his back, and everyone on the battlefield knew it. The M1 flamethrower made its combat debut on Guadalcanal, and despite all its problems, it proved the concept worked. Combat engineers from the 8th Marines, 2nd Marine Division, were pinned down by a Japanese pillbox, couldn't get grenades in, couldn't flank it. The position had them locked down completely. 2 Marines with a flamethrower crawled forward while their buddies laid down covering fire with BARs, Browning automatic rifles. They got within 25 yards, squeezed the trigger, and sent a stream of liquid fire into the bunker. All resistance stopped instantly. When they cleared the position, they found 5 dead Japanese soldiers inside. Word spread like, well, wildfire. Every Marine commander in the Pacific wanted these things.
Check this out. In the early Pacific campaigns, Marine divisions had maybe 24 flamethrowers total, all assigned to engineer battalions. By 1944, an F-Series Marine division was hauling 243 flamethrowers into combat, spread throughout the entire division. Each regiment got 81 flamethrowers. That's how critical this weapon became. Marines developed a tactic they called corkscrew and blowtorch. Here's how it worked. BAR gunners would light up a Japanese position with automatic fire, suppressing anyone inside. The flamethrower operator would move forward under that covering fire. Once he got close enough, usually within 20 to 30 yards, he'd hose down the position with napalm. Then demo guys would move up and use explosives to permanently seal the position, usually by collapsing the cave entrance. But make no mistake, this was the most dangerous job on the battlefield. Imagine you're a 19-year-old Marine on Peleliu or Iwo Jima. You're carrying 70 pounds of jellied gasoline in tropical heat, crossing terrain that's all jagged coral and volcanic rock. You can't run, you can't take cover quickly. The tanks on your back stick up higher than your helmet. And when you pull that trigger, when those bright orange flames shoot out 30 feet in front of you, you might as well be holding up a neon sign that says, "Shoot me first." Japanese snipers and machine gunners prioritized flamethrower operators above everyone else. Kill the flame guy, and the whole assault team loses its most effective weapon. Better yet, if you hit those tanks just right, you might set off a fireball that takes out nearby Marines, too. The psychological weight was just as heavy as the physical one. E.B. Sledge, author of With the Old Breed at Peleliu and Okinawa, wrote that being a flamethrower operator was probably the least desirable job in the Marine Corps. He watched these guys carry their loads through enemy fire to squirt flames into caves and pillboxes, and he said what they did took magnificent courage. Sledge wasn't exaggerating. These men knew the statistics. They knew the odds. They volunteered anyway. Iwo Jima, where flamethrowers won the battle. February 14, 1945, Iwo Jima. This island was 8 square miles of hell. The Japanese had spent a year turning it into a fortress, pillboxes, bunkers, and 11 miles of reinforced concrete tunnels underground. Allied bombing and naval bombardment barely made a dent. The Marines brought 8 M4A3 Sherman tanks modified with flamethrowers. They called them Zippo tanks. These things could shoot napalm through a 75-millimeter gun with a range of 150 yards. They landed on day 1, but didn't see action until day 2. Once Marine commanders saw what these tanks could do, everything changed. Units would literally halt their advance and wait for the Zippos to arrive. Those tanks were way more effective against fortified positions than any amount of artillery or airstrikes. The Zippos would roll up, aim at a cave entrance or bunker, and just drench it with napalm. We're talking 10,000 gallons of napalm burned every single day of that battle. But the tanks couldn't reach every position. That's where the infantry flamethrower operators came in. Corporal Herschel Woody Williams was a flamethrower operator with the 21st Marines on Iwo Jima. On February 23, 1945, tanks got bogged down trying to clear a path through a network of pillboxes and buried mines. The infantry was stuck. Williams volunteered to go forward alone with just 4 riflemen covering him. For 4 hours, this man assaulted Japanese positions while under direct small arms fire. When his flamethrower ran out of fuel, he'd run back to friendly lines, grab a fresh one, and go back into the fight, over and over again. On one assault, Williams climbed on top of a pillbox and stuck the flamethrower nozzle through the air vent, killing everyone inside and silencing the gun. When Japanese soldiers charged him with bayonets, he burned them down with bursts of flame. Williams earned the Medal of Honor that day. He lived to be 98 years old, passing away in 2022 as the last living World War II Medal of Honor recipient. But his story represents hundreds of unnamed flamethrower operators who did the same thing and didn't make it home. Back home in the States, Americans started hearing about flamethrowers and protests rolled in. People called them inhumane, cruel, weapons that caused unnecessary suffering. General George Marshall, Army Chief of Staff, shut that down with one line: The vehement protests I'm receiving against our use of flamethrowers do not indicate an understanding of the meaning of our dead." He was right. Marines on those islands didn't have the luxury of moral philosophy debates. They had two choices: use the flamethrower to clear those bunkers, or send men charging in with rifles and grenades and watch them die by the dozens. Marine veteran Bill Henderson, who fought on Iwo Jima, put it plainly: "We could not have taken the island without the flamethrower. It saved lives because it did not require men to go into caves, which were all booby-trapped and promised certain death to all who entered." The men who carried these weapons carried the moral weight too. They saw what those flames did, they heard the screams, they smelled the burning, and they had to live with that for the rest of their lives, knowing it was necessary, but never forgetting what it cost them psychologically.
The flamethrower saw action in Korea and Vietnam, but public opinion turned against incendiary weapons. In 1978, the Department of Defense issued a directive that banned the tactical use of flamethrowers and stopped all further development. No international treaty bans them. The DoD just decided on its own that the weapon had become too controversial, too associated with the brutality of war. Most M2 flamethrowers were scrapped or sold off. The ones in museums sit behind glass, looking innocent now, but carrying stories of unimaginable courage and moral complexity. Here's what you need to understand about the M2 flamethrower. It was one of the most effective weapons in the Pacific theater. It absolutely saved thousands of American lives, but it also required men to do things that haunted them forever. 4 minutes. That was the average combat lifespan of a flamethrower operator on the worst battlefields of the Pacific. But those 4 minutes often meant the difference between taking an objective and getting slaughtered trying. These men volunteered to carry hell on their backs because it meant their brothers might make it home. They walked into enemy fire with 70 pounds of napalm, knowing they were the #1 target on the battlefield, and they did it anyway. That's not just courage, that's sacrifice on a level most of us can't comprehend. So the next time you hear someone talk about the greatest generation, remember the flamethrower operators. Remember the kids who carried fire into battle and never came home. Remember the ones who did come home, but never quite left those islands behind. They earned that title in the most brutal, necessary, unforgettable way possible. Drop a comment below. Where are you watching from? Did you have family who served in the Pacific? And if this story hit different, smash that like button and subscribe for more real history that doesn't pull punches.